All right. Well, hey, folks, Jeff Salzman here. Welcome to the Daily Evolver, and welcome to the Daily Evolver Live with me and Ankur Delight. Ankur, welcome. Good to see you.
Hey, Jeff. I'm so happy to be back. It's been a couple weeks,
Yeah,
and I missed you.
I missed you too. We both did some traveling. We're back in the saddle, and we're experimenting with this live YouTube, and we post them too. But yeah, so we're just gonna talk it out, get this world straightened out here. So
Yeah, that's
what's on the agenda?
Yeah, we're gonna help people understand what the hell is actually going on, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity because without it, I never look at what's going on. So not only do I get to know, but I get to have it. I don't know if interpreted is the right way, but what's that word? It starts with the C. Just have the world, my world put back together in a coherentized.
Oh man,
yeah,
that's good. Yeah.
All right, so I got some headlines for you here.
All right.
Politicians charge millions to send migrants to U.S. through the Darien Gap. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I don't know too much about that one. I mean, there's certainly lots to talk about with migrants and all the problems with that, but
that's just intense. Biden's strategy on impeachment. I have no idea what that means. Maybe you do.
Nope.
Georgia judge orders 2 separate trials for defendants in election case. Oh, this is going to be fun. A Montauk fisherman faces prison over 200 pounds of fluke, which is a fish. UAW prepares for limited strike against Detroit automakers. China frees banks to lend more in latest attempt to spur economy. What do you think? Anything appealing to you here?
Well, honestly, I have to say I'm stuck on the migrants.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know the specifics of the Darien Gap and what's going on there, but integral developmental, cultural evolution theory really does help us to understand the migrant problem, which is a problem that is probably going to grow, as time goes by. And it really is a matter of developmental levels sort of conflicting in a way, because we have generally people aren't migrating from the modern world to the traditional and pre-traditional world. That happens to some minor degree, but what we have here are, large groups of people, thousands and tens of thousands of people coming from third world countries to first world countries. And there's a couple different ways in which that happens. One is if there's a war or some sort of a natural disaster and just sort of everybody is fleeing. And there's certainly a lot of this in human history, when the armies come in and that sort of thing. And then there's the just sort of people want a better life. People in traditional cultures understand what's going on in modern cultures in terms of a better life for themselves, for their children, and they want out. And you can't blame them. And so those two different categories of migrancy create two different sets of problems. Because with the first set, you're getting everybody, and you're getting them in distress and trauma, and they need to be taken care of. And they're not necessarily there because they want to be modern. They're there because they can't stay where they're at. And so in general, that's going to be the population of migrants that's going to be harder to integrate and is going to cause more problems for the modern world. The people who are self-selecting, this is like, if you think of, North America. I just came from Canada and did this tour of Quebec and, this whole French thing, and that's been going on for the second category of people who are, they want a new life. They want a better life. They're choosing. They have agency. These are the migrants that are relatively easy to. It's probably like your parents, Ankur, I'm thinking, right? They're here because they want to be.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. And so they want to play by the rules of modern society. And they're, the United States actually has a very good class of immigrants, if you will. They're generally people who want to be here. And so, I don't know if that gets us started in terms of looking at it through the developmental levels and some of the big categories. But what do you think? You're a son of immigrants, for God's sakes.
Yeah, there's two bones I'd have to pick with that, or the ways in which I'd like to complexify that.
Yeah.
One is that, and this is my pure Chomsky upbringing here, and really want to honor the contributions that Uncle Noam has made to my life. But this idea that people are looking for a better life, I think, again, there's subcategories in there, and sometimes that's true. Like my parents, I think, are a good example of that. My dad, maybe. My mom, from what I can tell, was just interested in traveling. It wasn't like she wanted a better life. She was just like, she just wanted to do something different. That was more of I don't know, more in the spirit that I've traveled in my life, really. But there's a lot of people that global capitalism has made their normal way of life impossible. And so as a result of our economic intervention, implicit or explicit, in their societies, their normal, like Guatemalan farming life or whatever, is no longer sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they're looking for a better life, not because necessarily America has like a higher standard of living, but just that they can't continue the standard of living they had originally because of that. Mm-hmm. So there's the Guatemalan Civil War thing. Mm-hmm. And then there's just the people in Guatemala, they're like, dude, I want a washing machine type thing. And then there's international corn prices or something have made my village farming thing impossible. Or mm-hmm. somebody came and built this dam and now my village is no longer mm-hmm. existing. There's all kinds of ways. And so I just like to remember that many of these situations, it's not like, man, why are these people coming here? We had nothing to do with them. It's like, well, they're coming here often because we were involved either militarily or economically.
Yeah. No, that's a terrific complexification.
Yeah. So that's one. It's nice to remember.
Yeah.
And the second one is that, and this I get a lot of from, Indian, farmers and peasants that I spent time with in the countryside, that we had a lot of talks about immigration and, the West and India and all this. And there's a lot of people that want to come here. And this is maybe lines of development in the different stages, because mm-hmm. they're interested in playing by some of the rules, but not by all of the rules. And so many immigrant communities are interested in playing by the economic rules and the legal rules, but they're not necessarily interested in the melting pot type experiences. Mm-hmm. They're mm-hmm. they want their sons and daughters to marry within their ethnic group and within their religion mm-hmm. and within their subcaste, mm-hmm. and maybe not even hang out with people that don't fit into that. Mm-hmm. And that's, you have these neighborhoods of only Hasidic homies in Brooklyn, or only Indian people in New Jersey or whatever. And there's that's I think there's a wide diversity of mm-hmm. which rules people want to play with. Mm-hmm. And of course, the, from the legal and the economic perspective, those are the kind of externals of what people are well, they're not paying taxes, or they're not, there's certain immigrants that are good at doing those things, but then they're not maybe culturally on board with modernity.
Yeah, right on. I think that's so good. And I think that fits very well with the integral lens, because you're right. It's lines of development. People want economic opportunity. They want to have the legal system where they can, work within it and trust it. But they don't really want to become modern in the sense of losing their sort of ethnocentric identity, their religion, their cultural practices, the people they hang out with. They're still ethnocentric people in their hearts. And
Yeah.
that's, America sort of prides itself on that, the many become one in a sense. And you can see over time, over 2 or 3 generations, that will eventually, for the most part,
Can't fight it really. Yeah.
you can't really, and that's fine, and that's great. I mean, it's great to have a place where it makes it a better place, because you do have then these ethnic subcultures that add to the sort of, life force and the complexity and the beauty of the culture, of the bigger culture. And when it works, and most of the time it does in the US. I mean, where it's not working is where you have people coming literally from really earlier stages, like tribal, warrior empire kind of consciousness, where it's, the gangs, the subcultures, some of the subcultures in Europe that are, violent. They don't want to assimilate. They don't want to assimilate economically either. Or the way they assimilate economically is the way red assimilates economically. They rob. They live off the system, and that's problematic. But when it works, there's nothing like it. It's really fantastic. I don't know if you have any comments on that, but I wanted to sort of hit what I just experienced with Quebec too, which is so interesting in terms of both of these things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple. I'll just put them as like little pins in the road. We might follow up later today or another day.
Uh-huh.
One has to do with meaning and purpose, and how my impression is, I haven't seen any data on this, but people in ethnocentric societies have a much better sense of meaning and purpose, and like less depression and anxiety than us like enlightened modern people who've killed God and put nothing in his place. So that's one. And,
Oh, that.
Yeah. So there's
killing
that.
God. Yes.
Yeah. I forget what was the other one, but I'm curious about the policy implications and the resistance. Like, if you can help me understand the resistance to immigration, because the way you've presented it, and I agree, it's really understandable.
Mm-hmm.
It's like very understandable why anybody would want to immigrate in these situations, whether it's war, whether it's a better life, whether it's my way of life is impossible. It's just like any one of us would do that in that situation, right? Mm-hmm. Regardless of where we were born. If we were born somewhere else, we'd probably do that. So what is help me understand the resistance.
Yeah.
And also, like, what is the integral approach? Because clearly you can't just, as much as like my heart would love to, you can't just like open the borders and let everyone who wants to move right now without some changes in our social system. So like, what's the way forward to integrate these different perspectives?
Yeah. Well, one way we can look at the resistance is it's the resistance of, we might call it shorthand white America. It's the America where, the Irish used to not be welcome. Everybody was, the French, I just came from Quebec. The French and British fought literally to the death for a century. I mean, bloody warfare up there, and in Europe
in
too.
Quebec.
Yes, and in Europe too. But then their children and their grandchildren, and then we have this culture, of what we might say white America. And so there's a sort of an ethnocentric dimension of that too. There are people who don't want that to change, and they're not really. Hang on here. They're not really welcoming other cultures, but that's actually a small percentage. I think it's maybe 20-25% of Americans really just don't want people of different cultures anymore coming in here. Most people approve of immigration. To the degree that they don't, it's because they want modern immigration. They want immigration that happens when people stand in line and follow the rules, and they come here, lawfully, and they whatever. instead of just coming over the border and overwhelming border towns and now overwhelming New York City. You know, people don't want that. I could see why, you know, but this in the scheme of things, when you look at history and the way that cultures would overwhelm each other, this is small potatoes, and we'll I think manage it, and we are managing it well enough in this country. But yeah, so I don't know if any of that makes sense.
Yeah, it's funny the white America thing. I really get this. I have this sense. It's almost like this like visitation from the future.
Yeah.
That this is like the last couple of years or a couple of decades where we're going to even have that concept.
I know.
Totally. You know, it's like we're just everyone is going to end up just brown.
Yeah.
It's going to be all these different beautiful shades. There's no stopping like the love from unfolding and everybody ending up some sort of mild shade of brown.
Yeah. Well, what's the latest statistics? I just saw them, Gallup poll, approve of interracial marriage. From, you know, in the 60s, 20%, 25% approved of interracial marriage. Now it's 98. You know, I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it's something like that. You know, and you know, you're totally right. And the trick will be, and this is the integral move, is yes, we're going to sort of all blend, and we're going to become modern. You know, we're going to be the grandchildren, and you know, that all get along in that way. But can we do that without losing God, culture, identity, without becoming anxious and depressed, and keeping some thread, these earlier stages alive in us, so that they actually matter? You know, but they're not dispositive. You know, they're not something we need to protect. We can offer them, you know, and we all receive it from each other. And that's the integral move. But we got a couple stages to get there. One is modernity, where, you know, we homogenize and lose God and culture, and, you know, become dispossessed and live in you know, soulless suburbs, and that whole sort of, you know, materialist thing that is well critiqued. And then postmodernity tries to solve that by reasserting identity and trying to rebalance the imbalances of history and all of that good stuff. And, you know, they do it in a fanatical way often, but it's the right move. And then by the time we get to integral, and this is what you're talking about with, you know, our children and grandchildren, I think they're going to roll their eyes at a lot of the battles that we're fighting right now. It's like, wow, that was the age of ideology.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. You know what it makes me think of, I used to work at the World Bank. I had a little stint in my life where I did that. And here's my critique of green, of postmodernity today. I don't know, maybe I've mentioned this before, maybe not. I just don't think it's enough fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's a little bit judgy or self-righteous. Where when I worked at the World Bank, there's this interesting thing where so many of the people, because people in DC, they're from all over the world. And many of them, especially the women, wore like their traditional clothes from where they were from, or at least clothing that had a little bit of traditional flair. It wasn't like the full-on traditional clothes, but some pattern or some color or some cut would be like that. And I noticed that too in different places in India when I traveled. You know, Mexico is similar, where there's like the women will often have just the most badass clothing that is just so like intense weavings and colors, and just like, whoa, that clearly took a ton of time and intention to make that. And the men have like very modernized and are wearing just like boring Western clothes in boring colors even. I mean, India, not as much.
A festival of beige.
Yeah. You know, in India, they've really resisted. The men are like, they're still wearing a lot of good colors. But
you know, it's just, go ahead.
Yeah. And it's just like, that's what we can keep out of like culture. It's like there's really good things. We don't have to be like, oh, I'm better than you, and we are the only, you know, like almost every culture, their word for themselves is the people,
right?
And everyone else are like somehow not the people. Like we can leave that behind, but just that we have myths, we have stories, we have a shared sense of meaning and interpretation of reality. we have food, we have culture, we have these clothing. It's just like, that's what I would hate to disappear. I
Yeah.
mean, that's what I think the project is, to be able to like be proud of those things,
Yeah.
and share those things, and teach the white people how to have the dreadlocks, and the, you know, the Korean people how to wear the saris, and have it all be like, this is a global cultural heritage that everybody gets the benefit from.
Yeah.
Because it's fun.
Yeah. Well, I'll stop you right there. That is, I think that's actually the key marker, is fun. You know, is, can you bring this stuff forth in a way where, you know, and I agree with you that the green postmodern meme is, it's not fun. And that's actually a feature of green. It's critical. It's critical theory. So if you're having fun, you're not doing the work. You know, it's really true. You know, your job is to critique. And that is actually evolutionarily its job. I mean, it's a pain in the ass, and it's depressing, and it's, you know, causes, you know, anxiety and all of this stuff that's a feature. These are features of green.
Wow.
And this is why we want to move beyond green, but take the great gifts of green, which is that we begin to see each other, and we redefine these hardened roles of sex roles or race roles, or even these ideas of beauty. I mean, if you see the fashion of green, I mean, it's you know, with the hair and the shaving and the you know, it's basically an assault on conventional beauty. It's like, I dare you to say I'm not beautiful, you know. Or a lot of postmodern art is, I mean, I love it, actually. I love postmodern painting. I love, my favorite museum, I talked about this before, is the Saatchi in London, with this postmodern, in your face ugliness that, you know, deconstructs hardened ideas of what beauty are, so that we can be released from those, and then move into integral with, you know, a embrace of beauty. But it's going to be different. It is different, because what it would say is that there's nobody who's not beautiful. There's no culture that's not beautiful. And then that's, what an exciting world. That is where everybody's beautiful, Ankur, you know. And it's not like you have to look a certain way in order to get a ticket on the bus. So anyway, that's, and to get to the point I was talking about a minute ago, the marker there would be fun. You know, if it's enjoyable and exciting, and you feel the life force, and it makes you want to laugh and get in the game, then that's going to be post-green. And that's where we're going. Yeah.
Amen.
Amen.
That's where I want to be. Yeah, for sure.
That's where I want to be too. All right.
Before we go,
yeah.
We haven't rehearsed this, so correct me, cancel what I'm about to say if it doesn't work for you. But I would be interested in what your listeners, or our listeners, are interested in us evaluating or investigating for next week. Because I'm just randomly looking at the news that I don't know that well.
Yep.
But it may be, you know, there's probably like a really challenging and kind of like difficult piece to interpret that would be really constructive if you weighed in on it. And so if one of your listeners wants to send that to us before next Thursday, we could approach it.
Yep. That sounds good. Just a little talk shop, and we'll leave it on. If anybody's listening, they can listen. But so here we are, and we've done this a couple times now, and I think we know what we're doing, and it works. The technology works and everything. So maybe we announce it on my email list, and maybe and your email list too.
Yeah.
And then we solicit questions and participation, and join us live. And I know there's a way for people to also post questions in real time on YouTube.
Oh, fantastic.
We'd have to figure that out. But why don't we do this? Why don't I work on an announcement? And then I'll bat it back and forth maybe with you, and we'll either get it for Tuesday or we'll get it for next Thursday, but we'll get it up and we'll we'll get people involved and promote this, and and get her done.
Lovely. The new era begins.
I know, the almost daily evolver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and so
Thursday
you're
evolver.
thinking we're gonna hit. You want to go to twice a week soon, or just
Yeah.
once a week?
Well, do you want to do next week twice a week, or do you want to? We can take a look here.
Yeah, I have something at this time because I had forgot to block it, but I can maybe move it.
Well, if you can, if not, we can just do next Thursday. And that
Okay.
might actually be better because we'd have a little more time to bat back and forth the announcement and even get it out there.
Okay, let's do next
Yeah.
Thursday and then go to twice a week after that.
And then go to twice a week after that.
Yeah.
All right. Cool, man.
Awesome.
I really appreciate your insight and contribution, and it's really fun for me to do this with you.
Oh,
So there.
thank you.
All right, man. Okay.